Hello guys and welcome back. So now in this video we will be adding falling and landing to our game. So for now, for example, if you go on top of this container, okay, as you can see when we now fall from here, as you can see the player stays in the air. Actually the player is falling to the ground but really slow. And also we don't have any animation as you can see. So what we're gonna do now, we will add falling and landing to our player controller. So first of all, inside the PBR military pack, inside the animations, let's find the animations first of all. So if you notice, we have this jump, jump 1, jump 2. Okay, so if we check these animations, first of all the jump. So as you can see, this is the jump animation, okay? And then if we check the jump 1, as you can see, this is the falling animation when the player will be in the air. And let me show you this one. This will be the landing animation. Okay, when the player feet touches the ground, it will play this animation. So these two, jump 1 and jump 2, are the animations which we will be using. So if we select the player, click on animator, click on layers. Right here, this base layer will be a layer for the movement and shooting, etc, etc. Okay, for the other actions, okay, for example the jumping, falling and landing, we're gonna create another layer. So click on plus sign and let's name this layer as override. Okay, let me move them right here. Then let's go ahead and create a empty state. Okay, and when we are done jumping or falling and landing, then we will get back to the empty state, and then from the empty state we're gonna go back to our base layer. Okay, now let's go ahead and drag and drop jump 1, jump 2. Let's check them out. So jump 1 is the falling and this is the landing, so we can name them accordingly as well, falling and landing. Okay, now make a transition from falling to landing and then from landing back to the empty state. Okay, now if we check it out, as you can see, this is the animation, and then if we select this one, this would be the landing animation. Now after this, click on parameters and let's create a pool by the name of is interacting. And what this is interacting will do, that it will check that if a certain action is playing, okay, then it means that when it is playing, then the player will not be able to do anything. For example, if the player is falling, then we don't want the player to do any other action. Okay, so that is the reason we created this is interacting parameter. Now go ahead and open up your animator manager script, and now what we're gonna do, we will create another method down below. Okay, whoops, let me actually give some space right there. Okay, after the change animator values method, and let's say public void, let's name this as play target animation, or just anime. First of all, it will require a string by the name of target animation, and then it will require a bool by the name of is interacting. Okay, then in here we will say animator dot set bool. We want to set the is interacting bool to this is interacting bool. Okay, so if our true value is passed to this is interacting, then it will be right here set to this is interacting bool on our animator. Okay, all right, now after this we will say animator dot cross fade, and in here we will say target anime, and let's pass 0.2. Now after this on our player manager, let's first of all create a public bool by the name of is interacting as well. Then in the late update right here we will say is interacting equals to animator dot get bool, and we want to get the is interacting bool from the animator parameter. Okay, and let's actually add a reference to our animator at the top. Okay, so right here we will say animator, name this as animator as well, and in the awake we will say animator equals to get component, and we want to get the animator. Okay, so what we are doing now is we are basically like every frame we are checking for that is interacting with the animator, and we are changing this bool to the one on the animator. Now after this on the player movement, let's go ahead and call our player manager script right here. So we will say player manager, name this as player manager as well. Then right here we're gonna say player manager equals to get component player manager. That is it. After this, when the player is interacting, or you can say the player is jumping or even falling and landing, then we don't want the movement and the rotation of the player to be enabled. So what we're gonna do, we will simply right here say player manager dot is interacting. If it is true, then we just simply want to return from here. Okay, that is it. After this, if we get back right here and click on this empty state right here, for this we're gonna create a new script. So in game scripts, let's create it right here outside the folders, C# script. Let's name this as reset bool. Click on empty state and drag and drop it. Okay, let me click on this. So we actually need to create a script from there. I think it's not drag and dropping in there as you can see. So let me actually delete this one now and click on empty, then new script. Let's name this as reset bool, then click on create and add. So now it is added. Okay, it is right there. You can actually drag and drop it inside the scripts folder like that if you want. Now if you open this up, this is the script. And the reason we have created this script is whenever the player is done interacting, or you can say when the player lands or the player is done jumping, then we want the is interacting bool to be set back to false. Okay, so for that we created this reset bool script. So in here, remove these other comments, leave the first one as it is, remove the comment from these two, and now in here we can now reset our bool. But first of all, right here at the top, let's create a public string by the name of is interacting bool. In this string we're gonna provide our bool name. Okay, and then we will create a public pool by the name of is interacting status. Then in here we will say animator. Okay, this is this animator dot set pool is interacting pool, and then we're gonna pass is interacting status. Okay, so is interacting bool. Now let's provide our is interacting bool on the script. So as you know, the is interacting bool name is interacting. So we will say is interacting. That is it. Now after this, on the player movement, we're gonna create a method to now handle the falling and landing. So I will say void handle falling and landing, and in here we're gonna now handle falling and landing. But first of all, we need to provide or you can say declare some variables. Okay, so now at the top above this movement flags, let's create a new header by the name of falling and landing, and in here we will create a public float by the name of in air timer. Then we will create another float by the name of leaping velocity. Then another float which will be the falling velocity, and then we're gonna create a public float by the name of raycast height offset, which will be by default equals to 0.5, and also we will be needing a layer mask for the ground in order to detect the ground. So let's name this as ground layer. After this, let's scroll down to the method now, and in here first of all we need a raycast hit variable. Raycast hit, let's name this as hit as well. Then we will create a vector 3 by the name of raycast origin, and in here we're gonna set the origin for the raycast, and that will be the player current position. So we're gonna say transform.position. After this we will create a vector 3. Okay, and this will be the target position. Okay, after this we will say that raycast origin dot y, we're going to take the y-axis and we will set it equals to raycast origin dot y plus the raycast height offset. Okay, after this we will set the target position to the player current position. Okay, and once we do that, now we're gonna check if the player is not grounded. Okay, we will say is grounded, and we're gonna also check right here that if the player is not jumping, but for now we don't have any jumping, so we're gonna leave a comment right here for reminding us in the upcoming videos when we add jumping. Okay, So now, for now, if the player is not grounded, it means that if the player is not on the ground, actually, let me declare this is grounded pool. We scroll up, we can just do it right here. So public pool is grounded, okay? Now, so if the player is not grounded, then it means that the player is in the air, and when the player is in the air, we want to play the falling animation, okay? So first of all, we will say that if the player manager dot is interacting is not true, okay, and if it is not true, then we will say animator manager. Actually, we now need a reference for the to the animator manager script as well, okay. So let me scroll up. Right here we will say animator manager, name this animator manager as well, and in here, whoops, okay, so we're gonna say animator manager equals to get component animator manager. That is it. Now right here we will say if the animator manager dot play target anim or animation, and as you know this requires two things, target animation and the is interacting bool to be set to true or false. So the target animation is the falling, so we just simply gonna say falling, okay, and then we will pass true that yes, the player is now interacting, so we're gonna pass true to that, okay. And now the player is in the air and playing the falling animation. So when the player is in the air, then of course we want some physics as well. We want to move the player down little by little. So in air timer will be equals to in air timer plus time dot delta time, okay. Now after this, what we will say player rigid body dot add force. Now we're gonna add some force. First of all, we're gonna say transform dot forward, because when the player start falling, we're gonna move it a little bit forward, and then we're gonna add the leaping velocity, I mean multiplied by the leaping velocity, and then again we will say player rigid body dot add force, and then we will say minus vector 3 dot up, multiply that by the falling velocity and then by the in-air timer. That is it. So now after this, when the player is done falling, then of course now we want to add the landing thing as well. So for landing, what we're gonna do, we will be basically creating a sphere around the player transform, okay, and then if that sphere touches the ground, okay, and that is the reason we created a reference to the ground layer, okay, where it is right here. So if that sphere then touches the ground, okay, anything that is on the ground layer, then what we're gonna do, we will play the landing animation. Then we will of course know that yes, the player now is touching the ground, so play the landing animation, okay. So let me tell you how we will do that. First of all, we're gonna say physics dot sphere cast. We're gonna cast a sphere on the raycast origin, and as you know the raycast origin is right here, okay. And we also added the raycast height offset. So what this basically do is it will set the raycast origin to the player feet, okay. I mean the feet area, something right there, okay. Don't worry, when we will be testing it, then you will know what I mean. Now we gonna pass 0.2 for that, and then we will say minus vector 3 dot up. Okay, then whatever the sphere hits, we're gonna store it inside the hit, and we're gonna pass ground layer right here. And now if we are creating a sphere now, okay, then what we want to do, we want to check if the player was not grounded before and is landing now. Okay, so we will say if the player is not grounded, and also the whoops, it is okay. So if uh, player manager dot is interacting is also not true, then we want to now play the landing animation. So we will say animator manager dot play target animation. The target animation will be the landing, and let's set it to true. Okay, so it will play the landing animation. And now what we're gonna do, we will create a vector vctor, okay, vector 3, name this as raycast hit point. This will be equals to hit dot point. Okay, and then we will say target position dot y equals to raycast hit point dot y. Okay, so we are now basically playing the landing animation on the surface. Okay, so now the in-air timer will be then reset back to 0, and the is grounded will be set to true, because now of course the player is now on the ground. Okay, after this if condition, we're gonna add a else condition as well, and in this one we're gonna say is grounded equals to false, simple as that. Now if we save the script and get back right here, it is showing these errors. So let's start from the first one, player movement 27 line. It shows bad array declaration. So this is the player movement. Let's check line 27. Okay, right here, whoops, okay, right here we just need to add a semicolon right there. Then if we save it, get back right here, as you can see that one error is gone. But on line 14 it is showing these two errors, the type on namespace name header attribute, and also the type or namespace name header could not be found. So on line 14 right here, we just need to make the H capital right there. Okay, I know I make these mistakes, as many of you guys know. Okay, so now it is done, and right here guys, now as you know that we are calling the animations right here by their name, falling and landing. Okay, so now there is no need for this transition. We just need to simply delete that. I have added that to test out the animation, that how does it looks, as you can see right here. Okay, but now we don't need that. We just need the falling and landing animation to be correctly spelled on the script. Okay, falling, landing, and falling, landing. Now if we click on the player, get inside the player movement right here, we need to now add values to these. So the leaping velocity, let's just make it 0.25. Falling will be, let's just say 60. And now we need to provide the ground layer. So if I show you the environment, as you can see everything on this environment, as you can see they are on the default layer. Okay, so for the ground layer we just gonna choose default right here, that is it. Okay, And now before testing the game, make sure that you click on animator, then layers, and right here, if you check the base layer weight, it is set to 1 and the override weight is 0. So what this will do, this will not play the animations. Okay, so make sure that the weight of your override is 1, okay, or greater than 0. So you can just make it 1, okay, that is it. Then let's get back to the script and copy the method name, and in the handle all movement now, what we're gonna do, we will just simply, we're gonna call it above the if condition like this. Okay, make sure that you add a semicolon, save the script, get back right here, and also on the animator just simply add this transition again. Okay, make transition from falling to landing back again. Okay, just don't remove it for now. And now if we go ahead and play the game, okay, here it is. Now if we run towards this, okay, now if we try to jump from here, as you can see, there is the falling and landing. Okay, let's try it again. Let's try it from this side now. Okay, as you can see, falling and then landing. Okay, and as we know that our player is falling really fast, so in order to change that, you can decrease your falling velocity. If we now set it to 25 for example, and now let's try it again. As you can see, now the player is falling a little bit slower. Okay, let's try it again. As you can see, now the player is falling a little bit slower. Okay, so you can change your falling velocity according to your own liking. I will now just leave this as 30. Okay, so now our falling and landing is working perfectly fine as well, and in the next video we're gonna add jumping to our game.